Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course, it is always a true privilege and honour to rise in this House of Commons and represent the wonderful, amazing, hard-working people of Peterborough Kawartha. Today we have a very important Opposition Day motion put forward by the member from Carleton, the official leader of the opposition, Canada's next Prime Minister, and it is to protect and help Canadians. The reality is, life has never been more expensive after 8 years of this Liberal NDP Prime Minister. He lost his way so long ago, he can't see the forest for the trees, I believe the saying is. He's refused to listen to the reality of what is happening outside of this building. And the motion put forward today is that given that 70% of provinces and 70% of Canadians oppose the Prime Minister's 23% carbon tax hike on April 1st, the House call on the NDP Liberal coalition to immediately cancel this hike. For people watching at home, you'd say, well, if 70% of Canadians agree with this, how can the Liberal NDP coalition go along with something that nobody wants? Well, Madam Speaker, that's Liberal math and that's Liberal logic. Because not only that, they will tell you that they get more back in rebates with their carbon tax rebate, which makes no sense. Because there wouldn't even be a rebate if you didn't take the money to begin with. There's zero common sense. And the average Ontario family is going to pay almost $1,700 in carbon tax. That's just this year, Madam Speaker. The numbers in 2030 are $3,583. Wow. This has been a lie from day one. I mean, the Prime Minister promised that initially this tax would never go higher than $50 a ton. Now, it's set to reach $170 per ton. Trudeau said the Prime Minister said the carbon tax would be revenue neutral, but the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms that Canadians pay more than they get back in rebates. The Prime Minister said the carbon tax would help lower GHG emissions, but the Liberal government will not meet its own environmental targets by 2030. Why does anybody believe him? They don't. They don't.
Hear, hear.
And why should they? Because he tells them one thing and does another, and doubles down, lets his ego lead. Because it's way more important to be right than to listen to Canadians who you are truly hurting. Do you know, Madam Speaker, according to the Food Insecurity Among Canadian Families report, using data from the 2021 Canada Income Survey, almost 50% of single mothers living below the poverty line struggle with food insecurity. What's going to happen with this carbon tax increase on April 1st if already 50% of single mothers are struggling with food insecurity? This past week I had the chance to visit the beautiful province of New Brunswick. Shout out to the East Coast and the amazing humans that live out there. And I went to many food banks. Double, triple increase in 1 year. And the demographic of who's using that food bank? Students, seniors, working middle class, and wait for this one, active serving military families. I actually couldn't believe what I was hearing when Jane told me that from the Oromocto Food Bank. I couldn't actually believe what she said. I said, what did you say? She said, yeah, we have about 50 active serving military families accessing the food bank. I said, since when? She said, about 4 or 5 years. And she said, here's the other part, Michelle. She said, they have to pay rent for their housing, and guess how it's heated? Natural gas. What's on natural gas?
Carbon tax.
Carbon tax. Oh, but wait, it gets even better. Because not only do they charge the carbon tax, the Liberal NDP coalition, they tax the carbon tax. That is disgusting. Do you know the PBO report reported that the carbon tax on propane and natural gas used for greenhouses, heating and cooling livestock barns and drying grain will cost the farmers nearly $1 billion by 2030. Has anybody visited a farm? I don't know if you know this or not, but farmers don't have a lot of money. Okay? Farmers are often what we call equity. They have a lot of assets, but very little cash flow. You bankrupt farmers, you bankrupt Canadians to be able to eat.
That's right. Yep.
This is the most insane thing I've ever seen, and you think, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And it really makes you question what is happening. Okay, so also, according to Canada's food price report, food costs for the typical family of four expected to rise by $700 in 2024. According to a Second Harvest report, 36% of charities had to turn people away because they were running out of resources. Did you know the First Nations, 101 First Nations communities have taken the Liberal government to court over the carbon tax? They're waking up. You know, it's all virtue signaling. Madam Speaker, how much time do I have left? Oh, thank you so much.
More.
So I have this lovely letter from a woman named Barbara, and she says, I heat my home with propane and a wood stove. Not only are we paying carbon tax, we are paying HST on the carbon tax. That is double taxation. I have called and written and spoken, but I can't get any answers. You're not alone, Barb. You're not alone, because the Liberal NDP coalition don't want to listen to you. They don't. Yesterday in question period, there was an exchange between the Leader of the Opposition and the Finance Minister, and she said, we'll take no lessons from the Conservatives because we will stand for the least vulnerable. Was that a Freudian slip? I'm not sure. I want to read back to you the comments that are coming through, because a lot of times what the Liberals across the way will say, oh, they're making things up. They love to gaslight Canadians or find one person to zone in on their confirmation bias and say, oh, our toxic positivity, things have never been so great. Things have never been so wonderful. We know that's not true. Hello, Michelle. I live in Peterborough. I'm a wife and a mother of 4, ages 13 years to 15 months. The increase caused by the carbon tax in 8 years of the Prime Minister's Liberal government is killing my family. My husband has a job that used to be the golden ticket of jobs here in Peterborough, and now we can barely get by. We used to spend $400 for groceries and have a month's worth of food. Now, we are lucky if that gets us more than a week. I can't afford new glasses, my husband can't afford to go to the dentist, and don't get me started on the price of formula and diapers. All of this lands squarely on the incredibly corrupt shoulders of the Prime Minister Liberals and the NDP coalition. Any help you can provide and advocate for us is amazing. Please help us. Bob Bolton wrote, there should be no carbon tax in the first place. Michelle, we have all kinds of trees to look after that issue. Thanks. Good old Bobby. Megan Ireland Danellis said, as a mother of 3 and a small business owner with a partner working full-time and a part-time job myself, it's already a struggle to put food on the table and pay the bills. This tax increase will raise the prices of everything. Yet again, I'm not sure how people are supposed to survive, let alone thrive. It is a scary state of affairs, and I really hope that our next government can find a way to clean up some of the terrible mess that's been made. I know you know, Michelle, people are suffering, and there is no need for it to be this way. Everything has been flipped, and the focus is all wrong. I've always been a proud Canadian and a patriot. These last few years, for the first time ever, I've considered leaving my beautiful home of Canada. I have lost hope, and I know I'm not alone in this. You're not alone. 70% of Canadians are experiencing what you are experiencing. Working class families can't afford to put gas in their car, food in their fridge, or heat their home. That is the reality. We all know this. The Conservatives all know this. For some reason, that side of the House, the people who are in charge of this country, fail to acknowledge it, fail to recognize it.
I have a point of order. The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Madam Speaker, the member is giving an impassioned speech about her riding, and there's so much noise in the area around the chamber, it's impossible to even hear her from the front of the floor of the House.
I already made a signal to the Sergeant at Arms, and he's already out there taking care of that. The honourable member for Peterborough-Kawartha has 40 seconds left.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And the reality, as you can see, there is literally thousands of comments. If you want to go, you can visit my Facebook page and read them and maybe join people, because this is the reality. We hear you. We are fighting for you. We know that the Prime Minister's decision to force his tax hike on Canadians is We know you don't want it. We have common sense solutions to axe the tax, and Conservatives will stand with you. We will fight for you, and we promise to make life more affordable. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, on April 15, there's going to be a carbon rebate checks circulated to Canadians. And the Conservative Party is going around saying that they're going to axe the tax, but axing the tax also means getting rid of the carbon rebates. And many Canadians actually factor now those rebates into their budgets, Madam Speaker. So 4 times a year, Canadians are receiving a rebate on a regular basis. Many of them factor it into their expenses, their budgets, and a vast majority are receiving more money back from the rebate than they put into the tax. That is the truth. That is the reality. Would the member make it very clear that the Conservative Party is prepared to take away those rebates that are being deposited come April 15?
Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is so hard to rationalize with delusion and liberal logic and liberal math. It is so challenging that the argument is, we're going to give you a rebate. If you didn't take the money, there would be no rebate. People don't have that extra money. The average family in Ontario, it's going to cost them $1,700, just under $1,700 in carbon tax. You know what they're going to get back? Just over $1,100. That's the Parliamentary Budget Officer. This is math, real math. And that's the reality of it. Why are they trying to gaslight Canadians? They know the truth. They're the ones accessing the food bank, and they're the ones who can't afford to live because of them.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member Courtney Alberni.
In June, I asked the Parliamentary Budget Officer that if we got rid of the carbon tax and we go towards subsidies and regulations, or we try to do nothing, what would happen? And if the U.S., who's made it clear that there would be a border carbon adjustment, and what would that be, the impact that would have on 8 in 10 Canadians? He cited that it depends exactly what is done in place of the carbon tax, but if we just speak about a carbon adjustment at the U.S. border, that would probably lead to an economic slowdown in Canada, and it would be significant, depending on the adjustment, of course. But he said it's not unthinkable that this would be this could lead to negative impacts on sectors that are more energy intensive, and he said it would drive up inflation in the U.S. And in Canada, it probably have the opposite effect. It would act as a depressor on economic activity and on prices. So it would be the opposite impact, or the effect, which is not much better. This is what he cited. In fact, you could say it's worse because it would depress economic activity. So my question to my colleague is, she ran on a price on pollution. As my colleague knows, I'm always trying to work on solutions. What are they proposing in place of a carbon tax to ensure that Canadians don't get the impact from a carbon adjustment at the border with the US, the UK, and the EU?
Honourable for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask the member opposite and all the members who asked this question if they've visited a farm lately. 2023's food price report estimated that the carbon tax will cost a typical 5,000-acre farm $150,000 by 2030. Anybody who visits a farm knows that farmers are stewards of this land. They are the most innovative, the most creative, the most environmental friendly. They have all the technology. They know what to do with the land because they are the stewards of the land. And so my question back to them was, what's going to happen when there is no farm? Because they cannot do this. So the question, to answer that question, is I would rely on farmers and their technology and their innovation and their connection to the land to actually help the environment, not a tax that punishes Canadians.
Time for a brief question. The Honourable for King Vaughan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to also thank the member from Peterborough-Kawartha. Today, we were at FEO, and she put a motion to stop the carbon tax so single mothers can afford to feed their families. The Bloc, the NDP, and the Liberals all voted against it. Is this what this government cares about? They don't care about the single mom. They don't care about how they're going to feed their children because they didn't vote with us. Could she tell Thank you.
A brief answer from the honourable member Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleague. Yes, that was shocking to adjourn debate on something that is so easy to do and to help and to listen. And again, I just reiterate this. This is 70% of Canadians, and we know that the carbon tax disproportionately impacts the most vulnerable. Single mothers, low income, seniors, students. All of these people are accessing food bank at historical highs. Never in history has it been this bad. And it's simple. Replace that person across the way that likes to call himself a prime minister, get rid of this tax, and make life affordable for Canadians.
Yeah. Here, here. Bravo, Michelle. Bravo.